The fish you are seeing is the largest, bony fish in the world named sunfish. This 3,000-pound Mola is so big that it can swallow a full-grown human. But how do these ocean giants get so massive? We did some digging to find out how sunfish grow up to be the size of a school bus. First, we need to talk about their diet. Sunfish are voracious eaters, consuming up to 40% of their body weight in food every day. As adults, they mostly eat plankton, tiny shrimp-like creatures called mysids, and small fish. That's a lot of calories. Just 1 pound of mysids can have 250,000 calories, and sunfish eat hundreds of pounds of them each day. All those calories help the fish maintain their enormous size. In fact, sunfish don't even need to look for food. They let the food come to them. And luckily for them, thanks to the way our planet is set up, their favorite snacks often drift right up to the surface. You see, when phytoplankton in the ocean die, they sink to the bottom. But along the way, other organisms like jellyfish and comb jellies eat them and then they die and sink as well. Eventually, all this dead stuff, including the animals that ate the phytoplankton, becomes food for sunfish. They're essentially cleaning up the ocean. But before you go slapping sunfish with a Sea Shepherd Society patch, remember that they aren't always eating dead stuff. Sometimes sunfish dine on live prey. When huge schools of young fish or swarms of crustaceans float by, sunfish will chase them down and gobble them up. In fact, one study found that in certain areas, 90% of the fish remains found floating at the ocean surface was made up of sunfish. And since there's no predators that sunfish have to worry about as adults, basically all the food they consume ends up helping them grow bigger. And speaking of growing bigger, sunfish have a unique advantage when it comes to getting massive. It's the way their bodies are put together. Unlike most fish, which have tapered bodies, kind of like your typical American car, sunfish are more like their bellies are much rounder than their heads, and that body shape gives them a lot of room to grow. For comparison, most fish have a Fulton-esque growth coefficient between 3 and 4. This value describes the relationship between a fish's weight and its length. If you know a fish's length, you can use its Fulton's coefficient to predict its weight. A higher coefficient means that the fish is heavier for its size. Sunfish, though, have a coefficient of 5.6, meaning they're much rounder than other fish. In other words, their bodies allow them to be much bigger than fish of a similar length. What's more, sunfish have big hearts, really big. Some are over 8 inches long, which helps pump blood containing oxygen throughout their gargantuan bodies. Because even though a round body can accommodate a larger animal, being big also means that you need a way to deliver oxygen to all those cells. Another feature that helps with this is their red blood. You see, larger animals need more oxygen. Their muscles just need it to keep up with their increased energy needs. But oxygen doesn't stick around in the blood very long, because it quickly gets used up by the body. So animals that need a lot of oxygen need to be able to transport it quickly to. Luckily for the Mola, their red blood contains a special protein called hemoglobin, which carries oxygen. And the red color comes from iron, which binds to oxygen so that hemoglobin can transport it. The bigger an animal is, the more iron it needs to function. So by having red blood, sunfish can make sure their muscles get enough oxygen, which allows them to keep growing. Now, thanks to their efficient cardiovascular system, sunfish can reach sexual maturity at around 7 years old, which is pretty fast for such a large animal. But when they're ready to breed, they have to head deep into the ocean, sometimes over 2,000 feet underwater. Why? Well, the eggs and sperm of most fish are very sensitive to changes in pressure, temperature, and oxygen levels. So, to successfully reproduce, many fish must return to the depths where they hatch to mate. Sunfish are no exception. Although they live in the sunlit surface waters of the ocean as adults, when it's time to breed, they swim to the depths to spawn. Fortunately, they don't have to swim very far since the ocean depths are only a few hundred feet below the surface. As adults, they spend their lives moving up and down in the water column, but usually closer to the top than the bottom. That's probably because they want to make the most of the plentiful food near the surface. Plus, they like warmer water, and the sun-drenched shallows are generally warmer than the frigid deep sea. There, they swim endlessly in search of more food, that is, until mating season rolls around again. Once it does, the massive fish undertake yet another journey although not nearly as epic as migrating across the entire Atlantic. The females release their eggs a little later, releasing between 3 and 15 million of them at a time. After spawning, both male and female sunfish head back to the surface to resume their normal routine of endless eating. And even though the eggs are incredibly tiny, about the size of a pinhead, they develop into baby fish fairly quickly, hatching after only 6 days. And despite the name, baby sunfish aren't actually orange. They're transparent. Not surprisingly, newborn Mola are pretty small, only about 2 and 2 inches long, but they're already on a path to becoming ocean giants. Within 3 years, they'll reach sexual maturity and begin hunting plankton and small fish. And if they're lucky and nothing eats them, they could live to be over 50 years old and get up to 3,000 pounds. It takes a lot of food, a streamlined body, and a good cardiovascular system to become a giant like that. And while sunfish are the biggest fish alive today, they may not hold the record for the biggest fish that ever lived. For that title, you'll have to look to the past. Around 130 million years ago, our planet was a very different place. The Atlantic Ocean stretched from one icy pole to the other, separating the supercontinent of Pangaea into 2 separate landmasses. Back then, global temperatures were about 9 degrees Fahrenheit warmer than they are now, and the climate was pretty stable, too. That stability allowed coral reefs to flourish and provided the perfect environment for the growth of gigantic marine animals. These included a fish called a megalodon, which literally means big tooth. These enormous sharks had serrated, razor-sharp teeth that grew continuously throughout their lives. And these teeth tell us everything we know about this massive fish. Megalodons are believed to have had the largest teeth of any known vertebrate. They range in size from 6 to 7.5 inches long and show we're consistent with a diet of hard-shelled prey like crabs and lobsters. Unfortunately, we have unfound any megalodon bones because they were either too old to exist or because sharks don't typically preserve in the fossil record. The same goes for other cartilaginous fish like rays and chimera. So unless we're able to uncover some megalodon bones someday, we won't know for sure whether or not they were bigger than sunfish. However, the evidence we do have suggests that they were. Megalodon vertebrae found off the coast of North Carolina were estimated to belong to a shark that was 46 to 51 feet long. Other researchers, however, have argued that these vertebrae actually came from whale bones, meaning that megalodons could have been even larger. Size estimates for the massive predator vary depending on who you ask, but most scientists agree that the megalodon was between 50 and 70 feet long. And if that's true, then they definitely beat sunfish to the punch when it comes to being the biggest fish that ever lived. And remember, if you ever see a full-grown sunfish in the ocean, you should probably stay away. And that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe and press the bell icon.